Yuval, welcome back to the channel. My name is David. Today we're back with a fresh POV concert photography video. As many of you know, I was at NAMM show this past week and I got to work with a number of musicians, but for this particular video, we're doing a shoot with Gabrielito y La Verdad. They were playing on the center stage over at NAMM. And they played there before. They played there last year, but last year I believe it was on the main stage up in the front of the convention center over in Anaheim. So, you know, they kind of moved them around this year. But I have a love-hate relationship with this stage, and I'll kind of get back to that in a little bit. But real quick, for those of you who don't know what NAMM is, it's basically, the best way I can describe it is like, imagine E3 and what it was for video games in that industry. NAMM is basically the same thing, but for music, instruments, software, etc. Very industry focused, and they have stages throughout the entirety of the convention center, and there's music playing like I think every like 20 to 40 minutes. So you hear a lot of stuff, and it's awesome. But the reason I have a love-hate with the stage, the reason I love it is because it's close to the ground. There was no barricades, so I was able to get close to the stage and get some cool portraits of the musicians with my 70-180. Because last year at the main stage, there was a couple barricades between the audience and the stage. It was also up a lot higher. And the reason for that is because they were live streaming everything. So they had multiple cameras throughout. And while I did have a stage pass, so I was able to go up and behind the musicians to get some cool photos. I wasn't able to get stuff like I did this year. So, but the reason I don't like this stage is because of the location. It was split lit, you know, in this courtyard. The way everything was set up, it was kind of just funneling light. And it was also high noon, so at 12 o'clock, the light's super bright. So you had like the horn sections out in the blazing hot sun, and then everybody else was in the shade. As the concert went on, because it was only 40 minutes, you do see the lights start to shift, but I kind of like leaned into it. I went more for a warmer, like and high contrast edit for the photos, as opposed to how I saw them out of camera, which are a lot cooler and more flat. So definitely leaned into it. But as far as me shooting stuff, I always try to include everybody in the band, because especially with salsa bands, it's usually, I think on the smaller side it's about 7 to 8 people, and then on the larger side it's about 12. For this particular band, they had a total of 11 people on stage, and they had 2 more people join them later, so it was a total of 13 people on stage. So it was very crowded. And usually, and this is something I learned from a Nikon music photography seminar I did last year with Michelle, I believe it's Michelle Gunder and Tado Young, both phenomenally talented music photographers. But they stated that you don't want to forget the drummer, because the drummer's always in the back, or in this particular case, Tiki, the drummer, was like in a bubble with plexiglass and everything to kind of dampen the sound. So I always try to not only get the drummer, but also include the rest of the percussion section, because it's usually drummers in the far back, and then in the middle of the stage you usually have like campana, timbal, or conga, and guiro, and sometimes the bass is right there, so you want to include the bass, bongo, and usually the horn and singer and keys or piano are usually up front, so those are the guys that usually get all the love. So everybody in the back, they need some love. And I also try to include everybody because it's a team effort, you know. All the musicians are there doing their part to make the song and the performance work. They play off of each other's cues and energy. And I mean, I'm not a musician, so I can't imagine what it's like to count off and like read music and all that stuff, because it's like a foreign language to me. I mean, the same could be said about photography and all that, but yeah, I have mad respect for the musicians. So at this point, I switched to my 17-28 because I wanted to get some ultra wide shots, and I didn't realize that Andy Vargas, the singer of Santana, was going to go up to sing because he's friends with Gabrielito. So I kind of regretted switching. I wish I would have waited, but I kind of made it work. I cropped in super 35, so on the 28 I got like about a 40. I did go back to ultra wide to get some nice wide angle shots. The stage was kind of plain, so I feel like it didn't really work. And even though I was close to them, I wasn't close enough for an ultra wide. So I just kind of had to make do with what I was able to get with this. So I always try to mix it up and shoot a mix of wide and tight, get some audience photos. Everyone was kind of like crowded up here, so I decided to go back to my bag and switch lenses back to the 70 to 180 because I wanted to get some nice telephoto portraits of Andy, but there was dust in my sensor, so I was carrying a little blower. Switched back, and then Randy, like a freaking boss, says, "I got you, man. I'm gonna close the bag for you." So I was like, all right, cool, because Andy was only gonna play for one song, so I wanted to get, at least some good portraits. So I did. I feel like I got some good stuff with this lens. I have been talking about the 70-180 recently, well, obviously because I did a review, but I love this lens. It's so lightweight, but it slaps like a motherfucker. The photos, everything just pop, and I love it. But yeah, it's always fun to see, musicians come together and like who's friends with who, and like who kind of just pops out of nowhere to entertain the audience. And Andy is phenomenally talented, not only with his stage presence, but the way he sings and just carries himself. It's just like he gets the audience going. I do love that because, again, you don't know who's going to show up, and it kind of reminds me of something like, watching WWE back in the day where it's like Stone Cold Steve Austin just comes out of nowhere, glass shatters, and like interrupts whatever's going on in the ring, comes in, talks his shit, and then Stone Cold stunners somebody and then walks away. That's kind of how it felt here, which is like Andy just showed up. Obviously he was invited, but like he shows up, does a freaking phenomenal rendition of what's going on, and then just walks off. But again, just having fun with it. And normally when you're shooting music, they oftentimes only give you about 3 to 4 songs. NAMM, at least for this particular stage, didn't have that policy, so I was able to shoot the entirety of the set. And the reason for that is because I do a lot of social media content for a lot of the bands I work with, so I'm always shooting photo and video. And sometimes I don't necessarily like to shoot the first, like, say, 2 songs of the set because the musicians are kind of just getting warmed up and they don't really have that vibe going off just yet because they're, obviously getting the crowd going. And then, like, once the crowd gets going, to kind of read the room and adjust as far as the music's concerned. But yeah, I was doing multitasking today because I was shooting this video, shooting photos and video with the Z8 and the ZF because I had that on a tripod to record the entirety of the set. And then a couple times I pulled out my phone to get some social media, like stories and all that. So, but it was cool, and I got to hang out with a couple other music photographers. I met one of Andy's friends named Pete Gonzalez, phenomenal music and concert photographer. I'm a huge fan of his work. And then my friend Rich showed up as well because he's also friends with Andy and a lot of the musicians on stage. So it was cool to be amongst your peers, and both Pete and Rich have been doing this way longer than I have. I've only been doing music for, it's going to be 2 years in July this year. And these guys have like shot Sister Sister, they've shot Kiss, Linkin Park, Santana, the list goes on. So it's like to be amongst those heavy hitters is amazing. And speaking of amazing, Carl Perrazo, who is the percussionist for Carlos Santana band, came up and took over playing drums for the last song of the day. And I absolutely love the photos I got because this guy is a monster. They call him El Maestro in Spanish, which means the teacher, when he's playing drums and percussion, conga, everything. He is just a freaking legend. But Tiki, the drummer that was playing with Gabriel, huge fan of his, and just seeing his reaction and his energy shift, it's like watching a kid see his superhero, in front of him, or like, you meet your hero. But I can't imagine what it's like to play with somebody like that, of that stature. I guess it's kind of the same feeling I was saying about how it felt to shoot with my friends that have way more experience. There's Rich getting the shot, which kind of also goes to show you the difference in terms of experience between me and somebody like Richard, where, I was kind of hesitant to go back there because there was a lot of wires and stuff that are, trip hazards, but he just kind of walked in and got the shot. So, that is something I am still kind of like learning what is okay to do and not okay to do, because there's some unspoken rules. But yeah, man, like I really enjoyed these photos of just the sheer happiness you see from Tiki performing next to Carl Perraso is awesome. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed listening to my rambling for about 12 minutes. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys found it useful or entertaining, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, double tap the dislike button twice. Trust me, it works. Don't forget to follow the band at The Real La Verdad on Instagram, and then follow me on Instagram as well at Dilo Visuals to stay up to date with my latest adventures. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hasta luego.